Hello, my name is Chantelle Quintana, and today I will be presenting to you my implementation of WeVideo. The problem I was seeking to address, there's three specific things I want to focus on for this presentation. One is that students have constantly found history to be dull, boring, and irrelevant. And me being a social studies teacher, this has always been a problem. I want my students to feel engaged. I want them to find it interesting because I find it interesting. But the reality is they don't. And a lot of times it has to do with the methods in which a teacher uses. This was found in many research articles I looked at. The one that kept insisting that it's dull, boring, and irrelevant was from Russell III and Waters. And so this was a problem I wanted to address when I did this particular implementation of WeVideo. Two, students receive little opportunities in other classrooms to collaborate with their classmates, which limits their communication skills. Social studies is one of those classes where students don't get to talk a lot to one another. It's kind of, a lot of people assume it to be you either know it or you don't. You understand, you don't understand. A lot of people don't see that in history you should collaborate with one another and communicate with each other to determine what historical truth is and interpret what actually happened in a particular event. And so it's really important for students to develop those skills, and ways they can do that is through the use of technology, which we'll see in a bit. Third problem, well, students are not developing creativity skills in most of their history classrooms because most teachers in history classrooms, they just lecture, they just use textbooks, they give out worksheets, and none of these things are engaging to students. They find it very boring, tedious, time demanding, and they're just sitting there not talking to one another while they do the worksheet. This also was shown in research, and this is a problem. Again, we're trying to prepare these students for the real world, for getting that job where employers are looking for them to have the 4 C's. So we have to learn how are we going to develop them. And so I'm really going to be emphasizing communication, creativity to see how we can address those two problems that aren't being developed in the classroom. So the solution. First off, students will need more opportunities in social studies to communicate with one another. If they don't, then they're going to always think, it's about just knowing the facts, and, if you know it, you know it, you don't, you don't. And that shouldn't be the case. They really should be communicating and collaborating with one another so that they can determine historical truth. But not only that, but then also creating products. They're exemplifying the creativity that they have and showing their understanding of a particular event in history. Two, for solutions, research has shown that students that do cooperate with the use of technology actually achieve higher than the average student who doesn't cooperate with others and doesn't use technology as much. And also, they're more willing to learn the material. So by giving that extra leeway for students to talk with one another about an assignment, about the material that they're learning, you're opening up the doors for them to actually perform better in the classroom. And that is based on research that I did find. And lastly, teachers need an innovative technological program that will do all of these things, that will engage students, allow them to communicate, and create a creative product. There are tons of different technological solutions to this, but there's one I really want to focus on, and that, of course, is going to be WeVideo. So WeVideo, just to give you some background, it's a Web 2.0 tool, but also can be considered a mobile learning tool that allows users to edit videos, collaborate with one another, and share their creative final product on different medium sources like YouTube and Vimeo. As you see at the top right picture, that's an actual screenshot of what a dashboard will look like on WeVideo. You can see you can upload your clips in there, and it actually stores your clips on WeVideo on the internet, which is great because then if students didn't finish the assignment in school, they can actually go home, log on to WeVideo, and all of the stuff will still be there exactly how they left off. And so that's a great benefit for WeVideo, is that it actually keeps your footage online and stores it for you. Other big thing and why I said it can also be considered mobile learning is because it can be accessed on your phone, your mobile device like a tablet, and also a computer. And so I know some of my students actually utilized it on the phone, and it was very beneficial because they could actually edit some of the things while they were walking around and maybe filming a few extra clips that they needed. So this is the technological solution I focused on because it was very helpful for my students with the project that they were doing. So WeVideo is going to allow users to develop a deeper understanding of the content because they're going to be building, reviewing, and communicating about aspects of their video. As you see in the picture, you see the group, they're discussing things, and that's what my students were doing. They're pointing at the screen, they're saying, I think this should be shorter, I think this should be here, I think we need to make this longer. They were collaborating and communicating with one another about what they needed to do to make their project even better and show their interpretation of the material. So that is one way in which WeVideo is able to show communication skills being developed and solving our problem that we were having. And then secondly, we see WeVideo also encourages students to use their creativity and storytelling skills. When you have a video camera in front of you, you really kind of almost go into like actor-actress mode to really make a great product and a great scenery for students to watch and understand the material in a different way. And so I think this is a great solution to the three problems we were really having with social studies curriculum specifically. So implementation, I did this project for all of my students, but I want to focus in on one class and really focus on what they did to better understand how this was benefiting or hurting students. And so I did it with my one of my classes that had 23 11th grade students in it at Chesapeake High School in Gainesville, Georgia. They were using WeVideo to edit and create video products over a designated 50s or 60s topic of their choosing. So it was anywhere from the TV to the baby boom, the Red Scare, the air conditioning, all of those topics that we discussed. And going along with that, so we did discuss these things prior to them doing the project. The project and the use of WeVideo is actually a supplemental lesson that came afterward. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to be able to compare and contrast kind of, how they interacted and engaged when we did notes and lecture versus how they engaged and interacted when we did the WeVideo project. The project did take 1 full week, and students worked on it on WeVideo specifically for 2 days, so they got to edit and actually do their extra creative touches when they did that. And then the data I collected was mostly from my informal observations of my students and also from their feedback surveys they gave me after we completed the project. And I always do that with all my projects so I can improve and make each project better for the next time. So the results. From the informal observations, I noticed that students were more engaged with the content than they were when having notes lectured to them. They were excited, they were having fun. You can see they really were wanting to, make a great video presentation, and so they worked really hard at bringing in props, utilizing the school area and building props and stuff like that to really make a great video. And so I noticed that they loved it. Students collaborate very well with one another for the most part. They're productive, they came up with ideas, they discussed what they liked, what they didn't like, and so they were really good at communicating with one another about what they wanted for their video. And then student products were creative and indicated a lot of effort. You can get a glimpse at the bottom. Those are snippet shots from my students' projects, and they had a great time with it. They put a lot of effort towards this, and you can tell in the results that they really enjoyed doing this project. So looking at the results from the student feedback surveys, which I liked more because they're the ones working on it, so they see a little bit more than I can see just from monitoring and assisting where I can. But a lot of students said that they enjoyed the project. They love working on WeVideo because it basically allowed them to have fun with the material, and they can express themselves and their interpretation of the content to their classmates. There were only a few students that did not enjoy their grouping arrangement, but I also found that those students that didn't like it were the ones that didn't turn their project in, so I'm not sure how reliable that was. Students know that they felt more connected with the material since they were able to direct their own learning and research information because they wanted to research that information. And I think that makes a huge difference. So when you tell them to look at something, they don't want to, but if they want to do it, they're more likely to remember what they research and connect with it. And then lastly, students loved working with WeVideo. They said it was easy, user-friendly, and it allowed them to use different special effects and add music, which was their favorite. But the only downside to WeVideo, they said, was that the processing time for publishing was way too long. Sometimes it was as little as 5 minutes, but sometimes it was as long as 10 minutes, and we couldn't find a happy medium. And so that was one downside that most of them told me. So lessons learned. WeVideo, excellent Web 2.0 tool that teachers should utilize if they want their students to develop the communication skills and sharpen their creativity skills. It's great for those two things. Teachers definitely need to indicate the basic functions of WeVideo prior to letting students work on it. If you don't, they might be a little lost, so at least breaking down the basic things that they need to know. I think that's very important. And lastly, just make sure you allow adequate time for publishing in class, or ensure that students know how to submit their project if it doesn't finish publishing in class, because there is a way to do that. And so if you can show them how to do that, I think it will make the project go a lot easier, and they will develop those communication and creativity skills you were focusing on. And like my man says, WeVideo is cool. You should use it in school. Thank you.